But let's also bring on board Mayuresh Joshi, who joins us, and Shrikant Chauhan as well to talk about perspective on futures and options. And Mayuresh, morning. Let me kickstart the discussion with you. Tell us what stocks are looking interesting, anything that may be up on your radar.
Morning, Aisha. I think with the kind of correction that we had witnessed and the up move in the markets over the past few days, our own belief is that a lot of large cap stocks is something that the focus should still be on for long-term investors. Now, within large caps, the themes that we are liking now is large cap IT. We do like cement, stroke infrastructure. Large cap cement still remains on our radar with expectations of volume recovery expected to come through over the next few quarters. And we do like selective pharma names and selective auto names. So I think these are the themes that we're probably looking at, specifically from the large cap names. And outside the large cap universe, EPC as a theme is something that we'll still continue to prefer.
Mayuresh, NMDC, what are your thoughts here? It's, commodities by and large are no longer trading at the trough levels. They've undertaken some price hikes as well. Is that a large cap name that would attract you?
Morning, Neeraj. Clearly, with the kind of fall that we'd seen in iron ore prices, both lumps and fines, NMDC was a clear loser in that aspect because the global prices had corrected significantly. Now, with the jump or the bounce back that we've seen in global iron ore prices, the expectations of increasing both the lump and fine prices are on the cards. However, I think the demand-supply situation still remains very, very weak in the sense that the end-user industries are still looking at not incremental demand getting pushed up. So NMDC, I think, has a strong balance sheet, but whether it has the capabilities of consistently riding through this commodity cycle, which is highly volatile at this point of time. So I think sentimentally the stock might move up. Consistency probably in prices is very difficult to call in the volatile world that we're probably living in at this point of time. So I think a sentimental up through, but I think we're not probably looking at a positive structural re-rating, at least from a fundamental side at this point of time for NMDC.
Okay, let's also bring on board Shrikant Chauhan and get in some stock strategies going. Shrikant, morning. Let me start with you first. Tell us what stocks are you betting on today?
Good morning, everybody. Especially we are focusing on pharma stocks because this time they have done well in the previous week, and other than this we are focusing more and more on PSU banks and metals because they are the outperforming of the current run-up. I think the metal sector have outperformed by almost 20-25% over its previous low of some 68.25 as compared to Nifty, and PSU banks, they are outperformed and they are the best outperforming sector of the entire up move, which is almost 27%. So we are betting on these three sectors, and out of pharma sector, we are specifically bullish on all large cap pharma companies, Dr. Reddy, Sun Pharma, Lupin Laboratories. But the way the Sun Pharma recovered from lows and the stock has formed multi-bottoms around 200 days simple moving average around 835, 840, we are of the view that Sun Pharma is the first stock to buy for. We are expecting stock to hit the levels of 920, 950 in next maybe 1 or 2 days of time. And I think the risk reward ratio is favorable because the stop loss level is very close by around 830. The other stock which we like is from the PSU bank space, and that is PNB. The reason is because buying PNB is the stock is forming rounding bottom on daily charts, and the stock is very close to its median level of 84, 85. Above that, we are expecting stock to hit the next levels of 95, 96, which is almost 10-12% higher from current levels. And here also the risk reward ratio is favorable. So with a stop loss at 79, we can take long positions in PNB at current levels. And finally, from the metal space, we like Hindalco. We also like Tata Sponge, but because it's a part of F&O basket, we are specifically focusing more on Vedanta and Hindalco. And Hindalco currently, it's a best buy because the stop loss level is nearby around 79. And here also we are expecting stock to hit the levels of 95, 96 in the near term because the stock is diverging positively on weekly basis. The stock has absorbed selling pressure, which the stock has started, the sellers have started since the beginning of 2015. So it's a strong bet to buy even at current levels with a medium to long term view.
CK, let's get in your positional play for the day, and you also betting on Sun Pharma.
Yes, very much so, and for reasons quite similar to what Srikanth just described. It's one of those stocks which has been, quite resilient to declines and has been building up its base. And over the last several sessions is now poised to stage an upside breakout. I do believe that Sun Pharma might outperform the others within the pharma space right now. And if it were to now stay above 865, 867, which is the current price where it is at, I think it would have a decent run which should then carry it till about 900 to 910 rupees. I think that makes it, this is not a price target which can be achieved in a day. That is why it's being put under a positional play category. So I think those with a multi-day outlook should look to buy on Sun Pharma. And the key thing also is that the stop loss is not too far away. We can keep it nearby till about 850 or 852, and those who can afford a little more can even afford to keep it a little further away. So I think all told, from the risk as well as the reward perspective, Sun Pharma seems attractive.
Mitesh, what is it that you're betting on today?
Yeah, so apart from the call in the morning, I have a buy on Godrej Consumer Products, which broke out of a triangular pattern. So that's a buy with a stop at about 1260 for targets close to about 1400. And Havells is a buy where we have seen good crossovers of price and moving averages. That's a buy with a stop at 285 for targets of around 305.
Okay, so those are some ideas from our technical experts as well. Aside of the stocks and news, Sandeep Sabharwal, I think a pocket that has started to move up the last few days is FMCG. And we've seen that movement in ITC and HULES, but we've seen that movement in Marico, Godrej Consumer, Dabur. All of these are moving up. And this is happening with the market showing signs of an uptick too. What's happening here? It's not that earnings are coming in a hurry. In fact, last quarter was all about volume growth concerns for these companies.
Yeah, I think it's also a reflection of the fear and skepticism in the markets, where people are still scared of touching economy-linked stock or stocks which benefit from any sort of economic recovery. So people are still betting on defensives. And some of these defensives did have some correction, but not very substantive, like 10-15% kind of correction, X of ITC, which really cracked. So it's more a play on the market sentiment at this point of time, rather than people actually trying to play on any recovery.
I go back to United Spirits once again. It's got nothing to do with Vijay Mallya right now, yet the stock is getting punished. I mean, Vijay Mallya is officially out. He's got his $40 million. He's hiding somewhere. We don't know where. But
London.
I mean, it's yes and no both right now. But where in London, that's all debatable right now. It's conjecture right now. Court has summoned him, whether he comes or not, technically, that's still, I mean, that's an unfolding story right now.
Well, the ET has summoned for him to come back in a week's time. And yeah, Ravi Nedungadi as well as the KFA CFO has been questioned for 2 consecutive days, Friday and Saturday. So it seems like it's going to finally be conclusion Mallya, and it seems like he has no choice but to come back. And I think that's been the indication from both the gentlemen as well, that he is going to come back. He has no way but to come back.
Cross fingers, but the crux remains that United Spirits as a stock has
It's
no
got nothing to do with Mallya, and yet the stock is suffering. So it's a good time to buy, isn't it?
It's a good time to buy if you are comfortable with the valuations, which I personally am not. So to that extent, I would say that valuations are still stretched. It's the most expensive stock in the FMC universe, maybe X of Jubilant Foodworks, where valuations I haven't seen now, so recently. So I would say that people should be, I think if people are not buying because of Mallya, they should be buying. But if they are not buying because of valuation, they shouldn't be buying. And I am not buying.
But, in terms of market messaging, I think the messaging is very, very clear that willful defaulters now will have no space to hide. And imagine what message, how strong, stern and a powerful message has gone down to all those who potentially have been willful defaulters and perhaps have really been on the wrong side of the law. Not for the right, not for business concerns, but generally when there was a fraud and when there was a cheating. So Vijay Mallya is one episode which is really going to open a Pandora box for the banking sector per se, but it will also ensure that in future, if you're a willful defaulter, that's how you would be treated.
Although the RBI governor has just warned that this should not lead to a fishing expedition, quote unquote his words, that, Mallya's episode, I mean, he did not name Mallya episode, but I'm I'm guessing that is what he meant to, indicate. He said that instances like these should not lead to banks actually just going out there and yanking out willful defaulters. And they should not stop lending just because of the fear of willful defaults.
I think it's a great poster boy example to give. I'm just saying it's a great poster boy example to give in a hope that it will deter a few people from doing what Vijay Mallya has done. I'm sure a lot of people do that. I'm sure
Always
we've had
been a
bigger
poster
examples.
Boy, right? For the good or the wrong. Yeah.
So I think 2 points on this. One is that on the willful defaulter thing, one thing which I was slightly intrigued on was that if you are a willful defaulter, you can't even sit on your own board.
Yeah.
So that's one thing which will become, I don't know how those companies will operate then, who will be on the board of those companies. That's one. Secondly, I think this episode will have some impact on the lending of PSU banks because finally, they don't have too much incentive in any case. So, X of the people who would have done something wrong, I think this could restrict credit flow into the economy, especially given the fact that the Prevention of Corruption Act change, that amendment and the new bill is just not coming through despite all parties agreeing on that, where today you can just be prosecuted for doing something vague as per the old law. And as per the new law, it's very clear on what you can be prosecuted on. So I think that's also something which the government needs to act on.
And also then, what happens to minority shareholders? Mallya has got tons of properties which the bank can sell and recover money. But if a promoter like UK Sinha as well mentioned, Finance Minister also mentioned, if they can't go to banks, if they can't go to securities, how do they recover money? What do they recover?
So there's a collateral which is always there. This is where the whole cultural part comes in, that when you're lending, you got to be careful. I mean, there's a collateral which has to be valued. Vijay Mallya was given money by IDBI when the firm had a negative net worth. So that's why insane lending which was going on, and there's an insane culture problem which needs to be fixed right now. So it's like saying that today when crony capitalism in the country has died, it is coming, of course, at a cost. It is coming at a cost that your industrial revival has not been so strong as it was. So good things always come at a cost. I mean, that's the problem with the law, that even some of the promoters which had good intentions and they've suffered largely because of the business cycle impact. But that's the way to clean up the sector right now. If you don't move the culture, what do you do?
Well, I just hope it has an impact because, quite frankly, Bhushan Steel or the Bhushan Group is setting up a new pellets plant as well, despite they being in the thick of things as well. But I just want CK to come in on this, the decline in United Spirits as well. And CK, obviously there's a pattern and a reason to which the stock is coming off. How would you be approaching trade here?
See, I think taking up from what Nikunj said that, if Mallya is out of the picture, why is the stock still falling? I think it seems to be, lots of pledged shares which are getting unwound. We read that news item in the paper about HDFC selling out lock, stock and barrel, some 70 crores. Now, if you push 70 crores worth of, let's say, McDowell stock or United Spirits stock in a market which is largely devoid of buyers and in an atmosphere where people don't really want to step forward to buy United Spirits stocks, I think the stock will definitely take a hit. And typically it is seen that when one, pledge holder sells, it makes the other pledge holders also pretty antsy, and they also think of actually selling out. So the market buyers are probably holding back from entering into United Spirits because there's a fear that there could be a series of pledge shares hitting the market, and I think that is what is keeping the stock down. It'll need some time for this fear to ease, and then maybe, the buyers could be back in the stock.
Okay, 2.5 minutes left. Let's try and talk some other stocks as well. And the ones which will be in focus today, we've discussed NMDC, we've discussed FMCG and the power names as well. Just one quick word, Mayuresh Joshi on Cairn India. What are your thoughts here? Top performer. Do you think it can continue its uptick?
Again, I think with the rebound that we're witnessing in crude prices, Cairn is an obvious beneficiary of the same. However, I think the key element of production sharing contracts, what happens with the tax liabilities, still appear to be an overhang onto the stock. And though I think the cash position on the books is very, very supportive of the price at this juncture, I think it's again a very difficult call to take in terms of how the commodity cycle specifically for oil will move henceforth from here. So clearly I think I think cash position extremely good. B, I think the overhang related to tax, related to how the production sharing contracts will move around are still appearing to be as overhang and a headwind to the stock. Valuations extremely attractive at this point of time, but clearly I think if I have to choose within upstream companies, Reliance is something that I'll still be very, very comfortable with.
Okay. Mitesh, come in finally just before we reach the pre-open session on some of the other commodity names. We've discussed cane at length. What else would stand out for you?
Actually, for me, I think cane is the strongest, and I have a very bullish price target of around 170 to begin with, 170, 175. The other ones, I do like the metal names per se. I think, Steel Authority of India or a Hindalco or a Vedanta and Tata Steel, I think, I would be waiting for any kind of 4 or 5% trading dip or pullback to the moving averages to buy into them. But the outstanding name here is clearly cane India, and I have, as I mentioned earlier, I think targets close to about 170 over here.
60 seconds to go, Neeraj. The pre-open rate surely would be strong. That's what the global cues are also indicating.
You bet, Nikunj. So we've got green on the screen yet again, about 50 odd points on the Nifty. That is the kind of uptick that we are most likely to see. So the start will be healthy. What else? The top stocks in focus. The global setup, as I said, is good. Watch out for NMDC. It's had a good move. Technical experts liking it as well. They have taken some price hikes and maybe there is some uptick there. As also watch out for Cane India. Crude is not in a bad spot currently, and we may well have a continued uptick on Cane India. It was a top performer in the Nifty in Friday's session. That aside, I don't know if sentimentally some of the power names get impacted or no with all this Uday buzz. And watch out for pharma names. We don't know exactly what's the quantum of impact, exact impact that could come into some of the pharma names. We'll discuss that with our guests as well. But I think this whole FDC ban issue could well have triggered a bit of a move here and there on some mid-sized pharma companies as well. But here are the first rates, and on expected lines, the index is starting off healthy. No, it's actually flat, so it's a bit of a yo-yo right now, but I reckon in about 6 or 7 minutes you will see a fair bit of green on the screen. Do watch out for CAN, do watch out for ITC, and do watch out for the FMCG names. I think they've had a good move the whole of last week, and maybe, just maybe, with the uptick that we're seeing in the index, those could continue. Do watch out for Reliance as well, just about hovering at the 1,000 mark.
Yeah, just a couple of other stocks which are going to be in focus. And I want to check in on the active participants list from last week. Considering Friday, like Neeraj also highlighted, FMCG was the big winner. So the likes of Unilever, ITC, Godrej Consumer, Jubilant Foodworks, they all held out very smartly. And seems like today too that trend is here to stay. Pharma as well was a winner in Friday's session. So Lupin, DRL, Sun Pharma, they all managed to hold out. Voltas, Strides Arco, or for that matter, and Interglobe Aviation as well, which has finally got the order and delivery rather for its A320 Neo. That as well held out. And I just want to check in on whether or not that continues to be a mover. Yes, it does. It's climbed to 825 now. Page Industries, CESC, etc. They were a couple of losers. iShares, which has declared an interim dividend of $100 per share. Look out for that one. Glenmark Pharma, which has now received an ANDA approval for one of the tablets. So look out for that one as well. And Cupid may just well be a small cap to look out for, considering it's received a non-exclusive long-term agreement to now supply female contraceptives for a good 3 years. So look out for this. You may just see big bang moves coming in on this stock. But yeah, in line with the rest of the globe, a little tempered for the SGX Nifty, for the markets, not quite in line with what the SGX is indicating, but we're holding out comfortably in the green. 75.40 thereabouts is where the Nifty is right now, and that's the rupee. Now, good to see that it's recovered quite a fair bit. So we've even recovered post that 67 mark. 66.93 is where the currency is. And it seems like, Sandeep, the market is completely priced in a rate cut by RBI this time around. 25 bips. Anything in excess of that, I'm sure we're likely to see a knee-jerk reaction.
I think more than 25 bips will come only if the US Fed indicates that rate hikes are much down the line. So if they leave it open for June, I don't think Rajan is going to cut more than 25 basis points. But I think it's more a question of liquidity in the system And in April, I believe system liquidity will improve substantially as government loosens its purse strings and the entire system liquidity improves. And at that stage, we should see further rally in government bonds as well as market rates coming off.
Okay, let's also bring on board then Darshan and chat about the D Street chatter this Monday morning. Darshan, the 3 stocks to look out for?
See, first of all, it will be Lupin, given the trends that we've seen recently. Dealers are indicating that some of the clients are actively accumulating the counter based on the strong technical trends that this counter is showing. And if you look at the FNO trends also indicates that there is fresh buying and long build up on Lupin. So Lupin is the first counter that, dealers are talking about. Also, Dr. Lal Pathlab is another counter. Over the past few days, some of the dealing rooms have indicated that some of the HNIs have been active buyers in the counter at every lower level. They are accumulating the counter. And finally, Dewan Housing, over the weekend, the company indicated the fact that, the board has approved the issuance of 2.12 crore warrants to the company. 2 benefits. First of all, there is immediate infusion of money into the company. A part of the money will be infused. And secondly, this gives an indication that the promoters themselves are very optimistic of the business. So overall, it's a positive cue that is coming in from the management of Dewan Housing. So surely should be in focus today.
Darshan, thanks a lot for that. Dewan Housing could be in focus. Home finance stocks could be in focus once again. Now, one stock which did incredibly well last week was Quality Portal. Registered double-digit gains, closed almost at 117, 118, was a high flyer. Mitesh, jump in on Quality Portal. Not a stock which we discuss on a daily basis, but the sheer price action last week is leading me to discover this one.
I think there was some kind of breakout taking place over here. Getting past 110 was very important, and I think the first target on the upside, 118, was already achieved. But overall, I think, this does look like a bigger reversal. We should see the prices go up to about levels of 135. So I think there's still about 17-18% kind of an upside left. Strong delivery-based buying. I think the average price daily volume on NSE jumped from about 80,000 to about 7 lakh shares. Clearly, I think there was a lot of buying happening over there. So I think this is a good stock to accumulate now. I think, at current levels, it is top below 110, and 135 is what I think the stock can do in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I want to get you in on some of the FMCG names and good traction for a Godrej Consumer, Jubilant Foodworks, Unilever, ITC as well. What's the trend that you're picking up, and would you go long on any of these names today? Shrikant, the question is for you.
Okay, I think from the FMCG space, definitely there are like a number of stocks on which we can bet, because the way the performance is there from Marico, Hindustan Liver, as you mentioned, Jubilant Food. I think the overall trend is still intact, but I think we have to focus more and more on Hindustan Liver, because this particular stock is in trading range of 800 and 850 since last so many months. So broadly the range is this, and above 870 we are expecting stock to hit the levels of 1000. So it is very similar to the formation of Asian Paints, very similar to the formation of Pidilite, and that's why we are of the view that we are going to see some breakout in the near term from all the FMCG stocks, and we are specifically bullish on almost all these stocks. In fact, if really somebody wants to take a positional or trading view for next couple of days or weeks, then they should look for adding this Hindustan Liver, Pidilite, Asian Paints as well as Marico to the portfolio.
Well, Neeraj?
Yeah, Nikunj, carry on.
No, Neeraj, I'm going back to the rupee once again. We tend to underestimate what the rupee and what emerging market currencies have done. Of course, we are looking at how the recovery has been for the rupee from the recent low, but rupee was on the threshold of a fresh low. And from where it was in the month of Feb versus where rupee stacked up right now, it's been a very strong recovery. So both in absolute terms and also in relative terms, Indian currency now has emerged as one of the biggest currency, one of the strongest currency, both in the emerging market basket and in the Asian currency market basket. And we must not undermine the impact rupee has on portfolio investors. So the strength in rupee, Neeraj, also has coincided with fresh flows. And for for someone who really bought, or a foreigner who bought into Indian stocks, let's say on the budget day or closer to budget day, I mean, this is a dream scenario. You got a V-shaped rally, a strong recovery, and then currency also has aided your returns.
You bet, but it's heartening to see this strength, quite frankly, if you're just purely a patriotic Indian, if you will. 66.90 on the rupee. So don't, we keep on telling always that don't invest into IT or pharma just because the currency is looking like weakening, because these trends could change. Anyways, that's not a right way to do it. But yes, I think that's the summary of what the currency movement has been. Maybe Ajay has a question or two to Deven Choksi as well on this strength in the currency and the markets. He's with Deven Choksi at the KR Choksi dealing room. Ajay, good morning.
Right, that's correct. Neeraj, good morning. It's very interesting to join you guys today from the premises of KR Choksi Securities, right outside the dealing room. In fact, Devin is right here with me. Let's talk to him about how the trade setup is looking. Devin, we've got a very good rally under the belt. Do you think it's got more legs?
Well, I would think that the market needs, I think, some amount of stability, at least something on the currency front. We have seen the carnage taking place due to the crude and the commodity prices. On the currency front, if I think we see the stability, then probably the return or the flight of money would probably not take place. And as a result of which, I think we believe that larger amount of thrust would be on the stability of the currency. That is first part. There is apprehension going on about the credit risk in the global markets also. If some of the banks, they behave well, which they are expected to, then in such situation, my reading says that I think market would find stability.
There were more actionable points. So what are you recommending your clients right now?
Well, we have been very selective all along, and I think we continue to remain selective. Some of the large cap companies where the valuations have become very attractive, they become equally, I think, a good choice to bet on. And that would include some of the banking stocks which have been significantly battered down. And would think that I think these companies would have the inherent strength to bounce back with the kind of economic growth which is expected to come up. So I think large size PSBs, some of the large size private sector banks which are now available at a valuation, I would think lower valuations, I would think they are interesting play. Some of the NBFC companies, particularly the housing finance businesses, where we see the robust growth is expected to happen in coming period. So that.
Okay, the other stock I want to discuss, and which again was the center of all the attention, was Crompton Greaves. Last week the stock shot up because they decided to sell their loss-making global T&D business, and now the stock will go the company will be demerged into the T&D business and the consumer business. Mayuresh, today is the last day to perhaps buy Crompton in that original avatar. Would you be a buyer here? Would you like to venture there?
Not really, I think. Yes, I think the stake sale has been extremely positive for Crompton Greaves, and the loss-making divisions, both on the SD&D part and the systems part, are going to contribute significantly, because I think the loss-making business is now more or less out. So if you take FY17 numbers, though the top line will decline significantly, you will see a good growth happening on the bottom line, with the residual business probably contributing quite nicely. So having said that, I think the EPS for the non-consumer business is expected to shoot up. And again, I think the stake sale is very positive because it gets the leverage down. So again, clearly hold on to Crompton Greaves, but I think not in a great rush to probably buy the stock today, even if it goes X.
Okay, and remember, it's been a strong stock generally, 149 and counting. It may be a technical adjustment for the demerger, but CK, you've been bullish on Crompton for a really long time now. What do you do with this one?
I think, a lot of recent upsides that we saw was on short covering, as the current set of contracts are to be extinguished and new ones to be issued post tomorrow. So that phase seems to be done. So I think Crompton at this juncture may not really move very much. Those who are interested in buying are there to support the stock if it falls. I think the F&O action is more or less done in the stock, so I think it might just spend the day going essentially nowhere. So it's only for longer term people. If you look at it from a longer term chart, at least intermediate outlook, the stock is yet to come out of the beating that it took. So it was good for a trading bounce, but most definitely not from intermediate to long term point. Definitely not as of yet. So I wouldn't become too gung-ho about prospects, even though there is all the split and order flows and whatnot. I think it's going to take time.
Okay, let me also recap what Mitesh as well as Dr. C.K. Narayan have been recommending today. And let's start off with Dr. C.K. Narayan's picks first and tell you what he's been bullish and bearish on, what he's been recommending. He's got a buy call in Tata Steel. Colgate has been a sell idea from him. And or rather Mitesh, in the meantime, he's got two buy calls today. That's a buy on Dabur as well as a buy on NMDC.
And of course, Godrej Consumer as well as Havells. And CK's positional play has been Sun Pharma today. So these are the stock ideas from our technical experts all through this morning. But if they had to nail it down to that one top idea for the day, which one would that be? Let's ask them that. Mitesh, if you had to nail it down to one top idea for the day, which is that?
It should be NMDC, Neeraj. I think with the positive news flow of price increase, I think the stock should do extremely well. 105, I was looking at 2 weeks kind of target. Maybe it will be done slightly early.
Okay, so NMDC it is from Mitesh's side, his top idea. CK, what about you? Your top idea?
Also going with a metal name, long in Tata Steel, 292 to 296 price range, and looking for a target at 305.
So Shrikant Chauhan, if you had to nail it down to one idea today.
Yeah, I would like to go with Sun Pharma because the stock is into bullish trend, and we are expecting stock to hit the next levels of 895, 900 above, which we are expecting massive technical breakout. So it's a classic risk reward ratio bet at current levels, buy at current levels.
All gentlemen, stay with us. 46 seconds and then we'll get the first rate for the day and for the week. And frankly, this week it's all about central bank policy action. We start the week with BOJ, then you got Fed communication middle of the week, followed by a communication coming from the Chinese central bank. I think that is likely to happen on Friday. So this week it's all about how markets would adjust, react, and they would analyze the central bank communication. The market verdict seems to be that ECB has done the right thing. ECB has done the right thing by following a loose monetary policy. There seems to be a sigh of relief, and there seems to be a lot of fresh appetite to buy back, which has come back into risk assets and especially back into emerging market equities. So it's a positive start, it's a constructive start, and it's a strong start for benchmark indices. Nifty on your screen, 7550. Bulls have managed to regain 7550 with a lot of style and with a lot of vigor. For the Sensex also, the first rates are nearly 0.5% uptick for the Sensex and 124 points up for the Bank Nifty. So the Bank Nifty also is chipping in very, very smartly. Crompton Greaves is the top traded counter on National Stock Exchange. Why? Because it's going to go demerger very soon. Today could be the last day to buy into Crompton Greaves in its original avatar. So if you really want to buy the transmission, the shares of a piece of the transmission business, today is the last day to buy before it actually goes for the demerger. You got Unitech, which is again a very liquid stock, but a penny stock now. It is one of the top traded counter there. Cipla, one newsmaker, it is at 538 rupees. And metals is where I think there is a lot of constructive price action. Tata Steel is off to a good start. Vedanta is off to a decent start. These are the two metal names which frankly matter, and both of them are off to a good start. ICICI Bank on your screen will just pop up. 5 rupees up for ICICI Bank from 180 to 220. Blink of an eye, and ICICI Bank has actually appreciated by something like 40-45 rupees. State Bank of India 182. KN India 2% up. DLF 1 rupee up. HDIL up by about 1.5%. So I think the mood clearly is pointing towards high beta, high risk. Stocks which have taken the highest knock are the ones which are really, really bouncing back.
Yeah, you've got ONGC as well, considering it's planning a good $5 billion investment for Eastern Gas. Look out for that. Dewan Housing, wherein they've issued a sizable amount of warrants as well to Vadwan Global Capital. Look out for that. And a follow-through on Interglobe, considering the management has indicated that the A320 Neo is going to save a good 15% of fuel from day one. That stock has started off flattish in today's trading session. I just want to check in on what some of the pharma names like Pfizer, Abbott, Glenmark are up to, considering some of 300 drugs have been banned by the government, and different fixed dose combinations is what they have banned. So yes, Corex goes out of the shelves. Pfizer is taking a bit of a knockdown, down about 4% as we speak. Coal India, they're likely to announce a 5% buyback in the next fiscal. Look out for that. I want to check in on on United Spirits. Many frayed nerves considering how the Malia story seems to be impacting United Spirits when Malia is now completely aloof from United Spirits and its functioning. Today, the stock is seeing just marginal bit of stability. But yeah, HDFC has invoked a pledge of 3 lakh shares on United Spirits. So look out for this one as well. Just a couple of stocks which I also want to check in on, and Cupid just could be one such case in point. Maybe just seeing firework moves. So let's just see what that stock is up to. Eicher Motors, they've declared an interim dividend of $100 per share, and yes, I want to see some of the follow through on FMCG names: Godrej Consumer, Jubilant Foodworks, Marico, Unilever, ITC. These were big movers in Friday's session. Today it seems like they're taking a bit of a rest. Jubilant, though, continues to hold out. Page Industries, Cairn, Voltas, Strides Arcolab, these were some of the active participants. Cairn has gotten off to a nice smart start and now 150 thereabouts in sight.
Yep. So, of course, on the large caps, it's Coal India because of the technical adjustment. There is some bit of weakness in select pharma names, if you will. Pfizer is down about 3.5%, Zydus Wellness down about 1.5%. So those are 2 or 3 names which are having a bit of a crack today. What's doing very, very well, surprise, surprise, Bhushan Steel, for all the news flow around it. And there is some, maybe if you can look at it positively, there's some positive news flow as well. But that stock is up about 5%. ENIL, with the standard disclosure that it's a part of the group company that owns the channel, is up about 3.5% today, 735, good going there. And I was looking at some movers in trade last week. So Astral Poly sprung a surprise out of nowhere, sprung up about 7 or 8%. It's not a very liquid stock, but it started to move back in today's session, flattish in trade. And then, of course, just watch out for the FMCG names. I dare say they've had a really good move the last 2 or 3 sessions, and the likes of Marico and Godrej Consumer, etc., should well be in focus. That aside, it's a quiet start to trade. The Nifty, of course, is up 50 points, so no complaints there.
You know, it's a very interesting market, and the reason why I say it's a very interesting market, up until now we thought that it's only beaten down names which are making a comeback. That's one part of the story. So you got a Tata Steel, Vedanta, Kane, Hindalco. That's one end of the basket. You got ICICI Bank, State Bank of India, some PSU banks and beaten down banks are also making a comeback. But the interesting trend is 4-digit and 5-digit stocks have also made a comeback. Bosch is up by 300 rupees. Eicher Motors is at 20,000. Shri Cement, which has been the poster boy in the 4-digit and the 5-digit stock RIC category, that is up by 151 rupees. Page Industries up 132. Blue Dart is up 70. Bajaj Finance is also up by about 40-45 rupees. So right now, it's not just return of beta or return of risk. Typically, when quality stocks, they start moving up and they start participating, that just tells you that normalization is coming back right now. And when quality starts moving up, there has to be a hand of institutional buyers or HNI buyers, which are really making a comeback. And CK, you may want to come in on this point now. It's no longer, the market action is no longer restricted to metals, banks or beaten down groups. Now it's the haloed group which are also making a comeback.
Yeah, about time, I think. When people have to come back to, let's say, the FMCG and stock like that, the leadership group, the market has more or less stabilized, and that stability builds a sense of confidence among traders to venture out among the less beta-oriented stocks. And I think that is what we are seeing, a slow spread of the move towards the other stocks. But whether this will sustain, that is a key question mark here, right? And I think the market would need some flow of good news right now. And if that were to happen, I think then this would spread further and then we could have a better time. But I'm still a little bit kind of skeptical of whether the higher levels can really sustain right now, because buyers don't seem to be so convinced as to hold on to their position. And at the same time, sellers are not aggressive. So a range-bound market is more likely. Within that, bullish bias is leading to all this.
13% up now. They get $45 million from Spectrum as compensation before March 31st, and that should augur well for a company of Saska's size. 14% up now. So a really big move on this one. Now, just before I get into the fundamental perspective, I don't know whether Mayuresh or Mayuresh tracks it also, or even Sandeep Saral tracks it or no. But Mitesh, coming on this, a quick one. It rises at times like a phoenix. Is this one of such times? Would you trade it?
Sorry, which stocks?
Sasken Communication, Mitesh.
Yeah, I think today, I think some kind of price action is definitely happening over there. Give me about a few minutes to, I think, come back to you on this. I think the stock has been already in an uptrend. Maybe it's heading towards levels of 400, but this is not the best entry point, certainly, which I can see that. So I think, I'll come back to you with some kind of levels to enter the stock. It might take about a couple of minutes for me to do that.
Okay, Sasken it is. I know Sandeep
It's
Saral
an
doesn't
IPR
track it.
case, so I think Sasken, Spectrum, which is a Beijing-based company, used some of their products or some information or patent, etc., and now they owe it back to them. Okay, not a bad start actually. We are picking up further. 75 is where we're
So
currently
just to
at.
put this into perspective, it's a market cap of 650 crores, and then therefore they're getting $45 million. That's a really neat sum of money that Sasken Communication is getting, and which is why I think this price action on the stock.
Yeah. ICICI Bank, though, that's your biggest winner today. 221 is where the stock is right now, so that's made a decent dash. Tata Motors is climbing up quite steadily. A 3% uptick coming in here. 365 is now what the stock is nudging. You've got a Crompton Greaves, Syndicate Bank, and metals as a basket. Vedanta, SAIL, they're all holding out very, very smartly, so look out for these. What's not looking good? Wockhardt, Bharti, Reliance Communications, Titan, and South Indian Bank as well.
It's a very good looking screen. It's not about just Sensex or the Nifty or benchmark indices. The market breadth is strong. The participation is well rounded. You've got a Tata Motors, which is a global story, which is up. You've got Tata Steel, which is a global linkage or a channel linkage. That one is up. iShare, a very domestic story. It is now above 20,000. You got Phenolix and Hero MotoCorp, completely rural story. They're also looking decent. So there is market action is not just restricted to a particular group. So needless to say, this is a very powerful market. It's a very clean market, and across the board participation only tells you that right now this market completely and totally are in a bull grip, so to speak. Mayuresh, let me get closing comments from you. If given an option to buy, let's say, two stocks, just the names, after the 10% run up from the recent low, where do you think the risk-reward ratio is favorable?
No, again, Nikunj, I think the private sector banks is something that I'll be extremely comfortable on. So ICICI Bank, case in point, the kind of dropping that we've seen in respect of the concerns related to asset quality, our own take is Q4 will again be a little bit soft. But if you go forward on FY17, the earnings growth should be quite substantial. And again, I think if I add on to the valuation of its subsidiaries, it is trading quite cheaply on a price to book comparison. So ICICI Bank is something that I would still be gung-ho about from a long-term perspective. The second stock that I'm probably liking is something like an UltraTech Cement. We've been discussing this for a length of time, but clearly again the expectations are with demand recovery expected to come through with the kind of additions that UltraTech is doing, with the kind of acquisitions UltraTech is doing. It's going to abet the company in a large manner in terms of how their volumes will pan out or the dispatches pan out, with price recovery expected to happen over the next few months. Our own take is a large pan-India based player like UltraTech should benefit immensely. So UltraTech is something that we will still continue to prefer from a long-term perspective.
Okay. Shrikant Chauhan, 12-13 minutes into trade, the Nifty is up 1%. Would you initiate any trades?
I think even at current levels, we should look for adding Bank Nifty to the portfolio, because the way the Bank Nifty recovered from the lows of 14,950, and in fact the index has made a flat formation on daily basis. I am of the view that above 15,500, the next stop for the Bank Nifty is between 15,700, 15,800. So I think it's a classic buy at current levels, because there are like number of stocks which are buzzing, but the risk reward ratio is much favorable for Bank Nifty. I think we can keep a stop loss at 15,350, and we can look for 15,800 in next 1 or 2 days of time.
Okay, Shrikant, good chatting with you. Let you go on that note. The big move, of course, is coming in the nifty names today. So ICICI Bank and Tata Motors, and look at the move on Tata Motors. 3.6% higher on Tata Motors futures as I speak. In ICICI Bank, both these stocks are the ones leading the move on the index. A 4% uptick coming in on cash markets in Tata Motors. 368 is what the stock is nudging right now. Still a buy, Sandeep? Tata Motors?
I think we discussed this few weeks back. What is the maximum what could be maximum percentage gainer in autos? So Tata Motors doesn't come in as a fancied bet, but that's what we talked about, and that's what is panning out. And it's also surprised in terms of the numbers it's delivered, in terms of wholesale numbers, overseas JLR numbers. So to that extent, I think till people keep on looking out for the top, I think markets and some stocks will keep on going up. And I think that's the sentiment today. People are still looking till where the market can go.
You know, we had Hormoz last week on our show, and he said that why are you writing off the Tata Motors passenger car business? Markets are giving that business zero valuation, but he's of the view that the new launches which Tata Motors is planning in the domestic market, you can really get surprised with those new launches. So my closing question to you is that between Tata Motor DVR and Tata Motors, which is a better stock to buy for a retail or for an HNI investor? Because frankly, the HNI investor is not really bothered about voting rights. He wants to make his 30%, 40%, 50% and get out.
I think then you have to play the gap, whether you think that the gap will reduce. If the gap won't reduce, it's the same thing. So I would say that I always tend to play the main stock. So I think the main stock is better.
Okay. Sandeep Sabharwal, Mayuresh Joshi as well. Let you go on that note. Thanks so much for taking the time out, gentlemen, joining and giving us that perspective. The index is the big news maker, but I dare say Sasked Communication 2 would probably remain in news. $50 million or $45 million for a 650 crore market cap company.